Okay, for this first section, this applies to both our website creation that talks to a database and to our Python file that talks to a database, our Python application that talks to a database. And what I'm going to talk about for this very first section is the foreign key. Now, as we go through and learn more about databases and the way they're structured and those sorts of things, essentially what happens is each table has its own primary key. So if I start here and I click on the cars table, we know that when we look at the structure, we set up the primary key as the ID, right? So the primary key is this unique identifier that identifies whatever's in our table in each row uniquely by this key. And we did it as a simple number that auto increments that goes up, counts up each time as it goes along. But you can see in the database it has a little gold key. Now in the owners table, we did the same thing. If we look at the structure, we have an ID there with a golden key. But those two IDs are separate, they're different. Now, one of them is the ID for the cars, and one of them is the ID for the owners. So they're two different IDs. And they're on two different tables. But we actually want the two tables to talk to each other, and we want the two tables to have some sort of connection, a relationship. And this is where we have what's called a relational database, where the two tables talk to each other and they have a relationship. So really, on the cars table, this ID here, we're going to use that ID on our other table. So this is a primary key on this table, but if we then use that ID on our other table, it would come in over here as a foreign key. It would come in because this table still needs its own ID for all of the individual people. We want to link it to the other one as a foreign key over here. And at the moment you can see if I run my mouse over the 5, it doesn't do anything. It's not a foreign key. So we want to have that link. We want to have that connection, and we want our keys to change. If I look at the structure, you can see here's my primary key, but there's no key next to this one. There's nothing saying that this links to an ID somewhere else, right? Which we really want. So I've put together a tiny little bit of SQL that applies for both programs. Like I said, the PHP, not the PHP, the website design or the Python file. It works for both. And this is the little bit of SQL, a SQL query that we can run. And it's a good one because it gets you to learn that you can do different queries. This one is an alter, and we're going to alter the table owners. Oops. We're going to alter the table owners. We're going to add a constraint, which is a foreign key. We're going to call it foreign key car. It's going to be a foreign key, which is going to be the car ID. So on the owner's table, the car ID becomes the foreign key, and it refers to or it references the cars table, the actual ID. So what we're saying is, this is going to be our new foreign key. It links to the cars table's ID on there, and then they'll always have some sort of connection. So I'm going to highlight all of that, Command C to copy it, minimize this down, go back to my table here. I make sure I'm on the owner's table. I go to my SQL and I paste that in. This is the same process we've been doing. And this is an alter table. So now if I hit go, I get a green thing saying, yeah, it worked. But what worked? What happened? If I go to my owner's table, it looks exactly the same. If I go to my cars table, it looks exactly the same. Well, if I go to the owners and then I go to the structure, now you'll notice that I have a silver key in here, and that is a foreign key. So that's saying on another table, this is a primary key, but on this table, it becomes a foreign key. It's a link to the other table. So that's the first thing that we want to make sure that that works. Now to test that, I could go to owners, look at the data, and now look what happens when I roll my mouse over these. It changes to a finger. So I could say, all right, Alice, who's got an ID of number 1 on this table, she's got a 5 car. Now if I click on it, it links me back to the other table and shows me exactly which car she's got, and you'll notice it highlights the ID. That's where the link came in based on that ID. So now these two tables are linked through a foreign key. So if I go to John, click on 4, it'll show you that's the car that he's got. So now this database is a relational database, and this is a much better way for us to work. So you need to make that change first before we start this next section. Now for the next section of this video, what we're going to do is we're going to need to use this information. We've got these owners on here. How do I then go through and say, all right, if I put a new car in here, how do I link it to the owner? How do I make sure that each car has an owner? So we're going to need a new page. And we're going to need a page that says, okay, when you have a car there, you can select who the owner is, and you'll need to update the database and make sure the database knows that that's the owner. Okay, so we're going to have to create one more page. Also, we need to fix some of the styling. We need to make sure that we've got buttons at the top that link to each page. We need to start to make it look more like a website and start doing some of those little things that make it more user-friendly. So the user interface needs to look a little bit better. So let's start off. Let's go back to brackets, because I write a lot of these things in brackets. So we're going to go to brackets, and you can see here I've created a new file called add_owner.php, right? It's PHP because it's got working elements to the page, as we've discussed in previous videos. So the first thing here is this is the connection to make sure that it connects to the database. We've also got another little section here that says add owner post. So that's going to be looking for the user to have entered something into a box in the add owner section. And what it's looking for in here in the names is it's looking for the name, the new name of the owner, and it's looking for the car ID of which car that owner's going to select as the one that they own. And you'll understand it better when you see the page running. But they're going to want a name and which car that owner owns. Okay, now the SQL, this is the actual query that's sent to the database. It says insert into. So it's not an add and it's not an update, it's an insert. So there's an insert into the owner's table, the name and the car ID, and the values are going to be what the user has put in here. All right, so one of them is going to be the person's name and the other one's going to be the car ID, which is now a foreign key from the other table. Okay, so it's going to link that and put that in. So this is the PHP section. Now we go down to the HTML section, the web page section that you see on the screen. And it's going to have a heading, add owner. And here's going to be the first little input. And you can see the methods post. We talked about this in the first video. That post means it's going to be an empty box where the user puts something in there. And then that gets sent to the PHP and the PHP runs the query. So in this box, which we're going to call name, the person's going to put in the name of the owner. Whoever this owner might be, they're going to put the name in. And then it's going to actually have a little drop-down menu. And it's going to say select the car, and this is going to have a box called car ID. But what we've done here is we've made a little drop-down menu. So I've gone select the ID, the brand, the model from the cars table. Get those results, however many rows there are, get those results, and make a little drop-down menu. That's what this little section here is. So it's saying print the different options. It's an option menu. The ID, the brand, and the model. So it's going to print out the options that the person has to select. And they're going to select one. So they don't type it in. They don't have to enter any information. They're going to click on the drop-down menu for the one that they select. That's why this is a select section here, right? So it's going to select which one of those items that they choose. Then there's going to be a button, which is a submit button. And it has the value of add owner, which if you remember up here, when the add owner button is clicked, then it goes through and it'll run the SQL, right? So it all kind of links to each other of how it's going to work. And then there's also a section down here, and this has a line across the screen, right? Horizontal rule. And this section down here will just output the name of the cars, the brand, and the person who owns that car currently, all right? So the current owner's name, the brand, and the model of the car. It'll put that out on the screen so that you can see who currently owns this. And if you watched our last video, you'll see that this is the same way. All we're doing is a preview of what's currently in the database. If there's a car in the database that doesn't have an owner, it'll say no owners yet, okay? Which will be a good way to do it. If we add a new car to the database, then we go to this page and it says this car has no owners yet, then that could be a good car that we could add. So this could be for someone who's maybe doing a dealership that's got lots of cars for sale, or it could be you're storing information about different cars for, I don't know, for your friends or something. It's just a good way that we could do it. Right, and then the page closes and that sort of stuff. So that's finished, right? So that's pretty much finished. Again, pause the video, copy the code down if you need to copy the code down, and then you can try and run this. I'm going to run it once to show you. Then we're going to start talking about the styling and the way this works, all right? So I'm going back to my MAMP. I'm going back to my website. I'm going to change this to cars. Remember, /cars, enter, and my car page came up. Now I want to change this one to, it was called add owners. Add underscore, add owner or owners. Let's have a quick look. What do I call it? Add owner.php. Hit enter. Now that I've explained how the back end, like the coding works, now you can actually look at it. Here's my heading, add owner. You would type your name in here, whatever it is, Fred. And then you would select, this is what I meant by the drop down menu, select which car from here is the car that you own. So if you're buying a new car, you can say, oh, I own the BMW M5 now, or whatever it is. You select the car that you're buying from there, or that you're going to be the owner of from there, and you would click add, and it would add you as an owner. Now at the moment you can see all of these here, and let's change one. We might as well change one for the sake of testing the website, right? So Alice currently owns the BMW M5. So let's change that. So let's make it, I said Fred, let's do Fred. So Fred is now going to own the BMW M5, and I'm going to say add owner. And see now down here, Fred now owns a BMW M5, right? So now he's down here, and if I hit refresh, do I want to send this again? No, let's just leave it as it is. It's already refreshed anyway. It already came up on the screen that Fred owns the BMW M5. So now let's go back and look at our database and see what that actually did. So if we go back here, not here, we'll get to that shortly. Let's go back to here, right? So let's go back to here. If we go to our cars one, our cars have stayed the same. We didn't add a new car in here. All we did is we went to the owners and we said, okay, we've got a new owner named Fred and he owns a BMW M5. Now, in reality, you can't really have two people owning the car, so we'll have to make a few little tweaks and changes in there that we could do, but at this stage, that worked. Fred owns the BMW M5. If I click on it, it'll take me to BMW M5. There we go, 2005 silver sedan. What would be better is if we did that, we might be able to tweak it a little bit so that if Fred becomes the new owner of the car, then Alice is not the owner anymore. So we'll just have to make that change. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about before we go ahead and look at how we would change that and those sort of things, I want to just have a quick look here at this page. Now, I had to do it again. I had to click up the top here and I had to put cars and I had to change it from cars to add owner and those sorts of things. We don't want to do that. And I talked about in the previous video about putting buttons up here at the top. Now, I've changed that file slightly, that header file, because we've now got this new page, this add owners page. So I've had to change the header file. So I'm just going to go here to the header. And this is just a rough file. We don't actually run this. This is just for me to write some code in to look at. So I created in the previous video 3 buttons, put them inside what's called a div, and I made those 3 buttons go. One went to cars, one went to CRUD, one went to reports. They were just stock standard buttons, and that's what they did, and then there was a horizontal rule. Now I've changed that. I've added in here cars, CRUD, report, but I've put a new one in called add owners.php, so we're going to have a 4th button in there. I've also added in here this line in here. This line is going to add an image, and in fact it's going to add a logo for us at the top of our page. And that little logo I created in with AI, right? So I just went on to ChatGPT and I wrote this line down. Create a logo for me that is about cars. It must have a white background. That was it. That's all I wrote, and it created a little logo for me. And when it created the logo, it created for me a white background logo. I'll see if I can find it for you right here, and I'll show you exactly what it is. So it's going to be inside my applications, inside my cars. This is the logo it created for me. Now that logo is okay. It's a white background. It's a car. I didn't ask for red, but it decided to put a bit of red on it. But when I look at the file, it's really big. 1.1 meg when you're on the internet is too big. It'll take a long time to load that logo. So I made the logo smaller. So I called it logo SML, And if you look at it, I cut out some of the white border around the outside and I've made the logo physically smaller. You can do that online, you can do it in Photoshop, you can do it in lots of different programs. I just went and made it a little bit smaller. I used Photoshop. So I've now got a logo. So if I go back to my HTML here, which was my heading section, I've got that section there, which is great. I can just copy that, Command C, and I can go through to my page, which is in here. Here it is, my add owners page. And I do exactly what I said on the last one. I go to the body section and I paste that in, and that should give me 4 buttons with a logo. Now there's a key to this. The logo has to be located in the same folder as all the files. So I can see my all my files are in here. My add owners PHP is in that folder. The logo is in the same folder. It can't be a folder within a folder. For the purpose of this, it needs to be all together within the same folder. So I'm going to save that. See, I've got the dot here, so I haven't saved it. So I'm going to save that, Command S. I'm going to go back here to this page, and now I'm going to hit refresh, and I should have a logo and a whole pile of buttons at the top. Yep. There we go. So now I have the logo with a whole pile of buttons at the top, right? Now, because I refreshed that page, it actually just resent this information. Now, Fred, I've got 2 Freds in there that own BMW M5s. So that's something I need to fix. But for the purpose of this, I've got my logo and I've got my pages in here. Now, if I go to the other pages, they're not going to have that. If I go to cars, there's no header. So what I need to do is actually copy that and paste that on every single one of my pages. Command C, so I've copied my heading, there it is. I'm going to go to my CRUD page. Oh, I'd already put it on CRUD, but I haven't updated it, so let's go, now it's on CRUD with the logo. Save it. Let's go to reports. Save it. Let's go to, I think cars was the first one that I didn't put it on. Here. Save it. Okay, so now I should have on all 4 of my pages, cars I've got it, CRUD I've got it, reports I've got it, add owners I've got it. That's great. Now the other thing I want to do is I want to play with the style. Okay, so I don't like the style of the page. I want to change this style a little bit. Okay, so if we go back to our page and have a look at it. In fact, let's refresh this cars one now. So you can see, there you go. I've got my logo and I've got these buttons here, but the buttons are small. How come these buttons are blue and those ones are grey, and this one's got white writing and that one's got black writing, and it's so close to the edge of the page here? I want to add some style. I want to add some CSS, some cascading style sheets. So to do that, I add 1 line of code, and I also put this in my header just as a place to store it, and it's this line. And essentially this line says link to a style sheet, and the style sheet name is going to be called carstyle.css, and it's saying the relationship is it's a style sheet, and the hyperlink reference is to carstyle.css. So I'm going to copy that, but this doesn't go inside the actual body section. This has to go inside the head section. So I'm underneath this title, I'm going to put this in here as a link right there, and I'm going to save that. I need to do that on each page. So I'm going to go to my CRUD page, and in here I'm going to paste it here. Now it's not inside the head here, but it's still not inside the body, so it's still correct there. So I'm going to put it there. My reports page, inside the HTML but not inside the body. I'm going to put that there and save it. And my add owners page, inside the HTML, not inside the body. Now what I've done then is I've made all 4 of my pages link to this style sheet, this style, so that the style is going to be the same. Now the reason I'm doing it linking to a style sheet is I don't want to have to go to every single page every single time to change style across all of them. If I put it into one style sheet, I can change all 4 pages in one go using my car style. So I create a new file here, and I just said File, New, and I saved it with a .css at the end, and I called it car style. And what I've done is I've gone through and I've added a few things. For the body of each page, I've added padding on the left hand side of 20 pixels. So what that should do is it should move everything here off the edge of the page by 20 pixels. That's the first thing that should do. The second thing is I've changed the buttons. I've made them all have a blue background, white writing. This is how fat they are, X and Y axis, how fat they are. No border around them, and border radius means they're going to have curved corners. So the buttons will be nice and round like they are here. They won't be square buttons. So I've done that and I've saved this file. I've saved it in the same location as the first one, and it's all here ready to go. So I've saved that. So let's go to my page and hit refresh and see what happens. So if I hit refresh, you'll see straight away it moved off the edge of the page and all of my buttons are the same. Now, it's not perfect. Obviously, you're going to spend a lot of time styling your website. You're going to put lots of different styles in. Colored backgrounds, you put images in. I've got another whole series of videos on how to style a website, which you can find on the IB Computer Science website under websites. So you can follow all of that on how to style a website. But this is just showing you how you can do it. Now, let's check that it worked on the other pages. If I go to CRUD, look, same style, same buttons. All of my buttons are blue with white writing with the same padding. If I go to reports, same thing, same header, same logo, same everything. And if I go to add owner, same thing. Buttons are all the same size. They're all exactly the same. Now, the last thing I want to do is we're going to have to go back and change this so that when a new owner is selected, the other one is deleted. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay, so to fix this little problem we had here about Alice owns the BMW and Fred owns it, and then when I refresh the page, Fred owned it again, we need to go back to our database. We need to make some modifications. So I'm going to go back here to my database here, and I'm actually going to go to the owners line here, and I'm going to go through it. I'm going to delete these two Freds in here. So I'm just going to go delete, okay, delete, okay. So now the only one who owns the car is Charlie. Alice that owns that car. We're back to where we were before I added the new owner. Now I need to alter the table. I need to alter the owner's table. So if we look at the structure at the moment of the owner's table, we just need to make sure that this car ID will allow there to be nothing in there. We'll allow it to be null. Now at the moment it actually does say null, but I just want to make sure of that. I want to make sure that it's going to allow null to be in there. So I'm going to go to here. Oh, and also on the oh no, that should just work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this little bit of code here. I just wrote this. Alter table owners. So we're changing the owners table. We're modifying the car ID to be an integer that's null. Now I think it's already in there, but let's just do it anyway. So we do this. We're on the owners table and we go. Okay, now that says that it's done it. It's made the change. If we go back to owners and we look at the structure, I'm pretty sure it was already right? So it can be null. Yes, it can be null. It can be nothing in there. So that's the first bit. So the database now will accept an owner who hasn't got a car. It'll accept an owner who has nothing in here. So it can have one owner with nothing in there. So if Alice loses the car, she'll have nothing in here, that would be fine. Now we need to go through and we need to change just the PHP section for the owners page. So let's go over here to the add owners page in here. Let's scroll down and let's get to this PHP section, which is, let's have a look, add owner right here. This section of code right here, we need to go through and modify this. Right, so if you look at this first section is correct. We're still going to add a new owner. We're going to add their name. We're going to add the car ID. This section here, we're going to insert into the owner's table the name and the car ID. That's correct. So all we really need to do is add one line of code in here, in between, that modifies or updates the current table and takes it away from whoever owned that car if someone owned the car. So the line of code that we need to do is this one, which is a simple one. I've just done it really quickly. We're going to make sure that we've got a connection. It's a query, and we're going to say update the owners set the car ID to equal null, where the car ID equals what the car ID was. So in other words, if the car ID number, car number 5, we're going to make that null, and then we're going to insert it into a new person. So it's kind of like a two-step process. As soon as we click on a car and we click the button, it'll make that car owned by nobody, and then instantly it'll make the car owned by the person that we said it should be owned by. So that should actually work. So it's kind of a remove it from one person and then instantly put it onto the other person. So let's test that and make sure that works. So that's the updated line that I've just added there. So let's make sure that works, right? So let's go Command S, save that. Let's go back to our, we won't do add owners. Let's go right from the very start and have a look how it goes from the start. So we're going to go here, my website, go to cars, /cars. And this time we should have the buttons at the top of the screen. We do, right? So I'm just going to go to add owner. So this gives me my new page. And you see at the moment, Alice is the owner of the BMW M5. So let's do our Fred, and let's change it to the BMW M5 and click add owner. And now you'll notice Alice doesn't own the car anymore. Fred owns the BMW M5. So it didn't just add a new owner to the same car. It removed Alice and it added Fred. So that worked correctly. Now let's check that on the database side. If we go to the database and we refresh this page here, Alice now does not own a car. She's got null. All right. So now Alice doesn't own the car anymore. Fred's the person who owns the car, and we've moved on, right? So this has actually done what we needed it to do. Okay, so that's pretty good. So that's all we're going to do on the website. I'm not going to continue this video going any further. These are the basics that you need to put together a website that has a database on the back end that can do all of the CRUD features, it can do the AJ features, and you can manipulate the data and move it around and do all those sorts of things. Now the idea is you take your idea for whatever your internal assessment is that's web-based, and you use all of these features. Don't leave one out. Make sure that you use all of these features, and that way you're maximizing your potential to get marks. You definitely need to change the style. You definitely need to change the concept. You're not using a car database like mine, but this gives you the skills you need to do it. Your styling should be substantially better. Your CSS file shouldn't be 2 lines like our one is here, or 10 lines or whatever it is. It should be like 200 lines where you've styled it in all different ways, and that style will impact every single page. So that's it. That's the end of this series of videos. If you're interested in the Python doing this, then you could watch the Python series as well.